Welcome back to Auto Anatomy. My name is Sean. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back working on the Corvair, and this video is going to be a little different. On the last video, you saw us knock out the nose of the car and get that solid again. There's still a lot of work to do. Now, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about cars, and I see a lot of creators doing things like putting out one little video that just allows them to get out, something every week. This is not going to be one of those videos. We're going to be doing a monster amount of work on this video, which means basically knocking out every bit of rust that's in the front of the car, getting it undercoated again, getting the trunk repainted and sealed, and finishing everything up so that on the next video, we can start rebuilding the front suspension and get this car back on the road. If what you're looking for is a short video that just shows a small amount of work getting done, go ahead and turn it off now. But if you like seeing classics get brought back to life, hit that subscribe button and click on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. It's a free way to help support our channel. You can also head to our website at autoanatomy.net, and I'll put the link up there where you can pick up cool merch. You can follow us on social media and check out everything that's going on with the flooded Corvair. So today we're going to do wheel arches. We're going to finish off the rust that was left in the car where the nose meets the body. Just a couple of little spots on either side. Plus, I'm really considering going ahead and knocking out the back side of the wheel arches just to get it done. There's all the little corner pieces here where the new nose meets the existing body. There's one on each side. Plus, we have the wheel arches on both sides. So I think my goal today is to get both of those things done so we can get the trunk all cleaned out. We're going to pull out the master and then the windshield wiper motor and bottle and everything. Paint the entire trunk, get it all nice and sealed and solid. Got a little bit of rust right down here in this corner, and then this is all pretty lacy. I think just for ease of things, I would like to bring it up to maybe here. I wonder if it would just be easy to just knock it off at the seam. Actually, maybe just below this seam. Right there. And then something kind of like that. So we'll just knock out this piece. So there's a bend in it here, and then there should be a bend up here, and then a bend out here. So I'm going to have to cut this out, make a cardboard template, and then we can cut this out of some 22 gauge or 20 gauge or whatever I've got, weld it in, get it seam sealed, and then be done. Almost made a critical mistake, almost bent this up instead of down. So let me flip this over and see what I can do. I may have to just hammer this in the vise. Okay, so I've got this pretty much mocked up. What I'm going to do, you can see it's bent up here. It's because this has a compound curve that comes back this way. So I'm going to start just tacking it in place, and then I'll just have to start here, push it back a little, tack it, push it, you know, all the way on until we get it all the way in the corner. Let me get this taken back apart, put some weld-through primer on here, and then once this part is done, we can move on to knocking out the wheel arches. Alright, now that the corners of the fenders are solid, we can move on to the arches. So it's time to mark out where the new wheel arches are going to be. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to cheat just a little bit. So I took just a paint stirring stick and screwed 2 screws into it at, I think it's like 1.5 inches or something like that apart. And what I'm going to do is I've got one stuck out further than the other, and that's going to ride on the inside of the arch here. And what I'll do is just hold this up and scribe out a line all the way around. Now this is not going to be my final line. This is just going to be like a rough cut. So I can cut, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch inside of this, and then we'll hold the new arch up to it and then cut again just to get a nice tight gap. But this will at least give me like a rough idea where I can start cutting the fender out. I'm so excited. So it looks like foam almost down in here. Yeah, that's not going to absorb water at all. Is this factory? Let me know, Corvair experts, because this is weird looking. I've never seen anything like foam used as a seam sealer, but if that is, no wonder all these rust out. So here I'm using the death wheel to cut off the wheel arch where it meets the inner fender liner. It's double paneled right there, and since I don't care about the old body work, I'm just gonna cut this piece off and then use a spot weld cutter and a grinder to get rid of all of the old rusted metal. So not shockingly, there's a little bit of rust on the inner fender liners that needs to get cut out and repaired before we can start putting on the arches. So let me cut that bit out and then make a new little patch panel there, and then we can start fitting up the new arches. Okay, so here's the rusty piece that we're trying to replicate. Got a little bit more work to do, then we're going to cut it down and hopefully knock out even more of this rust bucket. Alright, needs a little bit more shrinking. You can see just over on this side to kind of, or stretching, to get it to conform to this piece. We're getting close. All right, got all of the rust repair done on this inner fender, and I've coated some of this with Pour 15, and then we can take the this piece and line it up and get it welded in. So you know when you get in the middle of a project and you figured out that you've run out of supplies? Well, this is my running out of supplies. I didn't have any more paint brushes, little chip brushes, so I took a cheap Harbor Freight bench brush and cut some of the fibers off of it and put a little heat shrink around the end because I really just don't want to have to stop and go to the store and get more stuff. So this is my answer. So we got the wheel arch all wrapped up on the driver's side, and I've really been thinking about this a lot. And I think that if I don't fix this now, then I probably am not gonna come back to it. So we're gonna fix every bit of the rust in the front, including all of these. And that'll give me an opportunity to go and put some like Pour 15 on the backside and just kill all that rust and just make it where I can at least rest knowing that it's all done. So I picked up the back of the fenders from Clark's, and this is a stamped piece that will just basically replace everything up to about where the side badge goes. Unfortunately, that means we have to take the door off in order to get to it because, as you can see, this wraps around the, let's see if you can see it there, wraps around the back of the fender here, and I don't know that I can get to it otherwise. So I guess we have to take the car apart even more to put it back together. All right, well, it was a good thing anyway because it started to rust right down here, kind of right at where the outer fender skin meets the structure. So this all needed to be done anyway. So I'm just gonna cut like a chunk of this off, just kind of get a rough idea of where it needs to be, and then cut maybe up to like here off so I can just start peeling this away and creep up to how much we need to cut off. Let's get going. Okay, so with this piece all cut out here and roughly fit in place. Before I can weld it in, I've got to do some rust repair. Big shocker, I know. So I took a piece of the inner fender liner from one of the other wheel arches that we cut off and just kind of generally formed it. And I think what I need to do is, let me see if I can clamp this in place to show you. You can see it's kind of the right shape, but there's still a lot of holes here. So I'm just gonna maybe tack this in place and then start making little patch panels to fit so that this is all one solid bit. Once it's all solid, weld it in again, then we'll put some Pour 15 on it, weld the outer skin on, and then we will be done on this side. Put the door back on and then move on to the passenger side. Okay, so I've got this all solid again. I've still got a little bit of grinding left to do, but then the next step, I'm just gonna put some seam sealer on the inside, and then we'll coat it in Pour 15 and weld on the outer skin. So we've got it all seam sealed and painted with Pour 15. I went up into the fender as far as I could with the paint, so hopefully it is sealed, protected. All of the water passages that drain down from the cowl are nice and open. So I think it's time to weld on the new panel. All right, so we're getting pretty close to being wrapped up with this thing. Feels good to have it nice and solid again. Got a little bit more grinding here to do, and then just a tiny little bit of mud to go right there to fill that slight seam. And this one will be wrapped up and be ready to go on to the passenger side. Not bad. Pretty good paint match. This is coming from Automotive Touch-Up. It's you enter in the paint code and they give you paint that matches, so we'll see what it looks like when it dries, but I think that's pretty decent. Been doing a little bit of work here on getting this all body worked. It's not quite perfect, there's still a little bit to go, but it is awfully close. So the next thing is going to be this side. So I've got my marks here on where I need to cut out, and thankfully it's not going to be nearly as much work as the other side. But I do have some inner fender work that needs to get done too, and then obviously the back side of the fender here. But all in all, not too much more. Been working on getting a new piece of metal whipped up here to replace the rusted bit. Just been doing some stretching here. Pretty close to the curve of the wheel arch. Not quite perfect yet. Then I've got to trim it back a little on here. But once this is done, then we can go ahead and mark this out, get it welded in place, put some Pour 15 on it, and then finally get this wheel arch on and sealed up solid. So I'm guessing that this foam stuff is actually factory because there's more of it over here. Let me see how I can do to pull this out because this is, I don't know if this stuff holds water, but it sure looks like it should. All right, got a little bit more grinding here to do. Some seam sealer, some Pour 15, and then weld on the new arch. All right, I think it's pretty darn close. Just a last little bit of touch up on the grinding here, and then I think we're ready to put a little skim coat of mud on here, do some quick sanding. This will be knocked out. Then the only thing that'll be left is the back of the fender. So I got the passenger side door off in preparation for knocking out the back side of the fender, and what do I find? More rust. It's shocking, I know, but now I've got to get all of this done. At some point we've got to be done with all this rust. So here's the reason why this is rusted. All of this is blocked up. So, yeah, got a lot of work to do. Huh, that's funny because I felt like it was draining water down from the cowl, so it must have just been trickling out just enough. Okay, let me finish cutting this part out and then I can start working on the big elephant in the room. So this is all pitted up here, and I'm wondering if it actually wouldn't just be easier to replace this whole section rather than trying to cob this into like some thin metal here. So I think I'm probably just going to lop it off like here and then come back, and that way it not only just replaces this whole thing but gets rid of this kind of lacy metal down through here, and it'll actually be a little bit easier to weld and grind. So let me get to cutting. I'm gonna have to go to the store because I don't have any metal this thick. Well, I got this pretty clean. Unfortunately, I did hit some of the trim, and that's, you know, my fault for not taking it off, but that can be replaced. If y'all know where a good source to get one of these that's in good shape, just let me know. Drop it in the comment or send me an email, send me a direct message, whatever. I'm kicking myself now for not taking this off like I did on the other side, but all right, what's done is done. Let me finish cleaning this up and then make this new piece here, get this welded on so we can move on. I've got my piece here all covered in masking tape and cut out, and I left a little tab here on the bottom because this actually sits like this and this gets welded to the body. Next step, I'm going to peel the tape off and place it on this piece of 18 gauge so that we can cut it out, and I'll have a perfect template of how much I need to cut. Okay, let me make sure I bend this the right way. All right, so this is going to bend back. All right, there's our new piece. Now I just have to trim it up a little bit, weld it in, and now we can finally get to doing the back of the fender. All right, now we're nice and solid again. Got just a touch more grinding to do right down here, and then we can finally put the outer skin on. So one thing I notice, and this just really bugs me, is when people say something is restored, they don't actually fix anything, they just slap Bondo over it. So in the process of cleaning this up to see how deep the rust goes, what do I find? Bondo, just covering up the rust that was there. So whoever did this car last knew that this was here and just covered it up with Bondo. Unbelievable. So I don't know that I have the ability to fix and create these kind of panels. I just don't have the equipment here, nor the experience. But what I do have is a buddy that has a bunch of Corvairs in his yard and is trying to get rid of some of them. So what I may do is just head back over to my friend's house and see if I can just cut out that whole corner of the door frame and try and graft it in. I think in the long run, that'll be a lot easier than trying to piecemeal this thing back together. So I wanted to show you how far the rust goes. I took a screwdriver and just started digging this out, and it's a good thing that I'm going to try and replace this whole thing, because look at that. All of this was just packed full with Bondo. Can't really afford to slow down while waiting on going out to my buddy's place to get that new front quarter of the door jamb. So I've got plenty of work still to do. Next steps are, I've got to get the brake master cylinder out, and then I want to build a front spare tire mount, and I know that they came on AC cars. So I've just whipped up a little bracket here that I need to make out of metal, and then get that welded in place. I've also need to climb under the car here. Several people have pointed out that I should have replaced these brake lines while I had the fuel tank out, and I didn't do it last time, but I'm gonna do it this time. I'm also gonna clean up and undercoat all under here, get it nice and solid again. So let me just pull all these brake lines out, you know, remove the fuel fittings, that kind of stuff, get it prepped and coated with some Pour 15. Once that dries, put some undercoating on, then I can actually go ahead and slide the fuel tank back in place, and we'll be one step closer to getting this car back on the road. Whipped up a little bracket here for the spare tire mount and moving it to the front. The original ones from the air conditioning cars are hard to find, so this is just easier. It's a piece of 1/8" steel, and I just made a quick pattern as you saw. All I need to do is just drill a couple of holes in it, plug weld it in place, and then we can move on to painting the trunk. The trunk's all masked up and cleaned up, and I've picked up some paint for it. Now, I got this stuff based on some recommendations that I saw on not only several Corvair forums, but just Chevrolet forums in general. They said this stuff, Zolatone, is like the best stuff to use for painting trunks. It's a gray and white spatter paint, and I'll put a link in the description of where I got it. I don't know, we're gonna try it. I've never used this product before, so wish me luck. All coated, and I've got to say, I think that looks pretty fantastic. The Zolatone stuff definitely lays on a little thicker, and I had to thin it out just a little bit with some lacquer thinner to get it to spray out of my gun, but once it did finally start spraying, I think it came out super smooth, nice and uniform. Overall, I am super impressed with the way that this all turned out. So I've got to let this dry before I can start putting anything in it, and realistically I'm going to give it several days because I don't want to mess this part up. It's such a cool part of the car, having the trunk in the front, so it starts a lot of conversations, you know, when you go to the grocery store and you pop the front of the car and people look at you like, you know, you're putting groceries in the engine. So I really want to make this part look nice and have it good and hard, so I'm gonna wait a few days. In the meantime, let's head out to my buddy's place and see if we can get that front part of the door jamb. Made it back from my buddy's house and he hooked me up. I shot him a picture of what I was looking for and this is what he got me. he cut out the entire corner. Now this has just got a little surface rust on it, but this is all solid, and if you can see, it's below the area where all of the seams are, the factory spot welds. Almost. And it's free, finally. This took about an hour worth of cutting and grinding just to get this one little panel free. I don't know how many layers there are, probably 4 or 5 layers at some places, thick. But the good news is this is a solid piece. I'm gonna soak this in some like Evapor Rust to see if we can kill some of this. And while this is soaking, I'm gonna work on getting the original piece off the car. Yeah, I think this is going to work out really well. So I've got some reference points here. So I've got the little notch there so I can know exactly where to line it up. And start making some marks here as a rough idea of where this is going to be. I'll have to trim back here. Yeah, I think this is going to work really well. I'm excited to get this done. All right, all done. That is a ton of work to get to this point, but all of the rust is out. So next steps, I've got to make a plate that covers this part up again. You can see this is just lacy as it can be. It's weird. I'm not real sure what the whole point of this inner panel is, because even if this was open, it's going to drop down into the same hole this is. Maybe it's structural, I don't know, but this is an awful thin piece of metal for just structural. Regardless, Chevrolet engineers, I guess, knew what they were doing, so let me remake this panel here, get it welded in place, then we can start putting the new metal back on. Well, I've got the inside painted with Pour 15. I need to let this dry before I can make that little secondary interior panel. Also put some Pour 15 on the back side of the door jamb here, at least in the parts that are not going to get welded. I think that while this is drying, this is as good a time as any to go ahead and take care of the undercoating on the bottom side of the car. As you saw previously, we had put some Pour 15 down on some of those rusted areas. That's had about a week to dry. It should be good and ready. I think now it's time to go ahead and spray some undercoating. We can build some new fuel lines, put the fuel tank back in place, and hopefully by that time, this will be dry and we can move on to the final step of getting this car rust free. All right, so I've got everything all taped up on the car. You can see, getting ready to spray some undercoating on there. Let me show you what I'm using here. This stuff is nasty, but it works really well. It's a rubberized undercoating, and I thought about using like bed liner or something like that, but at the end of the day, this stuff works fantastic and it's cheap. Problem is, it makes a heck of a mess. So I've got a bunny suit here. Let me get all dolled up and protected, and then we'll get started undercoating the car. All right, we've got it all undercoated now. I've got 2 good coats on everything. See if I can get under there and show you. So this should really help with rust proofing, with sound deadening, all of that good stuff. So now I just gotta let this stuff dry, and then we can put on the new brake lines, and then finally, we're gonna be done with this. So it's been a few days since the undercoating was put on. Everything's nice and dry, and I went ahead and ran some new brake lines just because those were the original ones, and a lot of people had asked for them. So all new brake lines were done. Now it's time we can go ahead and drop the fuel tank back in place. All right, fuel tank's in. I can't believe I'm at this point, but there is one last thing to do on this car before we can call this video done. And that is to weld in the final little piece of the door jamb. So I've got the piece all cleaned up, got some Pour 15 on the areas that aren't going to get welded, some weld-through primer on the areas that are. I need to put a little bit of weld-through primer on here, and then, you know, the places on the body where it's going to get welded. And then we're going to knock this guy out and then be done. Got the door jamb piece all welded in. I've got a lot of grinding left to do, and then we're going to get some paint on it, hang the door back on, and then we can do a little bit of body work, you know, here on the front. That's going to wrap up this video. Here's a sneak preview of what you're going to see on the next video. I know this has been a lot longer video. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with us. If you love this kind of content, take just a moment and hit that subscribe button. Click on the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Comment below, tell me about things that you'd like to see, and share this with your friends. Thank you again for watching. God bless, and we'll see you next time.